YouTube's official blog just released a 3,000-word article on how YouTube's recommendations work. And it's a fascinating read that I'm going to include in the description. I recommend you read it. But today I'm going to talk about some key findings. I'm going to summarize the article and try to synergize my expertise with the knowledge and experience that is provided in this article. So let's get started. This article was written by Christos Goodrow, who is VP of Engineering at YouTube, and he has been here for over 10 years, so there's a lot of knowledge here. So let's dive into first some of the points that they talk about, and I'm gonna point out some key findings that I think is really interesting in the things that they talk about. I also want to preface this that since this is official YouTube blog content, I want to preface this saying that there is some PR in here, and probably multiple copywriters and writers and editors have reviewed this article. The first thing they talk about is they talk about what a recommendation system is. And essentially, they talk about how it is a system built on helping people find videos they want to watch, and that will give them value. As the article continues, they actually talk also about unique viewing habits. And this is what I find to be really interesting. Even though they start off this section saying they want to recommend content that people want to watch, but really it's the idea of suggestion, because one quote that they say here is, "Our system then compares your viewing habits with those that are similar to you and uses that information to suggest other content for you to watch." I actually really like the example they used here. They talk about how if the system notices that people who like tennis videos also enjoy jazz videos, then they might end up recommending that content. This is one thing that a lot of new YouTubers struggle with, is getting recommended. And one of the reasons why is because sometimes you might be siloed in your own space, and that's why collaboration is very important, and just trying to find the right persona for your content is important as well. The tennis video and the jazz video that they gave here, the example here is a good example, because the two genres have nothing in common, but they're still able to recommend with each other just because of how the system works and how the persona ends up having some overlap. One thing that they don't say is that the algorithm and the recommendation system, the goal really is to get you addicted to the platform. And that's why, sure, they say they want to find videos that they want to watch, but it's really about suggesting videos to get you on the platform, stay on the platform for as long as possible. There's also a bit of PR here talking about how you can pause, edit, or delete your YouTube search and watch history whenever you want, which is also helpful because if you want some new recommendations, you can always go into there. The next section here I think is probably the most interesting to me, because they talk about how they personalize recommendations. They start off giving us a little timeline, very cute graphics from 2008 about how label content as borderline, which they also talk about later, and to help with better recommendations and a better overall YouTube experience. The reason why I think this section is the most interesting is because they also talk about a number of signals that they use in order to help inform the system, which is really the algorithm, about what is the best content to be recommended. They talk about clicks, which is click-through rate, which I also talk about. They talk about watch time. But the thing that popped out of the three, clicks, watch time, sharing, likes, and dislikes, that is pretty straightforward. By now, if you're still watching this content, you don't know what watch time is, you probably should be learning about that. The signal that was the most peculiar to me is the idea of survey responses. Now, have you ever seen, sometimes when you're using YouTube, sometimes suddenly they would pop up asking you, what did you think about this video? They would ask you to rate out of 5, and they would also give you a check mark in terms of whether it's heartwarming, whether it is humorous, whether it's motivational, inspirational, and that is a new term which is talking about valued watch time. Valued watch time is the idea of time spent watching a video that you consider valuable. So they went from first how many views a video has, and that is through by people clicking it. But they also realized sometimes that type of content isn't necessarily good just because a person clicked on it. Now they talk about whether or not watch time, value watch time. So before they also had watch time, and if a video has a lot of watch time, it means that it's good. But this new layer that they're doing, which is using survey responses, is they can measure value watch time through user surveys that ask you to rate the video that you've watched, 1 to 5 stars, and also to describe the video as well. The remainder part of this article is pretty good, but there is some PR, I believe, that they included here. And that's probably because if they just talk about the system and the algorithm, it might not be safe from a PR perspective. So they actually have a whole section talking about responsible recommendations. So this section that is called a focus on responsible recommendations, the thing that stands out to me is the idea of problematic content and borderline content. They talk about this term here, which is also new to me. Now, borderline content by their definition is content that comes close but doesn't quite violate their community guidelines. Some examples they have is conspiracy theories or misinformation that can be trouble, pretty much. What stood out for me here is they are still using a workforce for moderating. They talk about how evaluators look at these questions, whether or not it achieves its goal, what is the reputation of the speaker in the video, what is the main topic, is the content satire or is it actually borderline? These are all very interesting. And these evaluators, they put classifiers on the videos to identify them as borderline, and slowly the human evaluations train the algorithm to model the decisions, and slowly they can scale this aspect as well to be able to moderate properly. They don't use the term moderator, but they're essentially assigning classifiers to videos that they find to be borderline and teaching the algorithm to identify. Some of the big takeaways is survey responses, valued watch time, and classifiers and borderline. Like, these are some key terms here that haven't really been present in this whole discussion for growing and succeeding on YouTube. The remaining part of the article talks about some questions related to the recommendation system. And once again, there is some PR that is included here. They talk about whether or not borderline content gets the most engagement, does it grow watch time, and more importantly, it talks about does extreme content get recommended more. And what's interesting about this point is I think we all want viewership, we all want to grow, and people sometimes, it's not necessarily borderline content, but there is clickbait, there is some exaggeration, some animated aspects of YouTube, just because, you know, as a platform becomes more saturated, people are trying to do more and more things to get your attention. So I think the takeaway for some of these questions here is the fact that they're saying making borderline and controversial topics doesn't get you more watch time, doesn't get more engagement as well, and it doesn't help with getting recommended. And that's a good takeaway for a lot of content creators here, including myself, who are looking to continue to grow their platform and help my clients and influencers as well. But it's good to remember that extreme content doesn't lead to success, according to this article here. And I think I agree as well when it comes to creating content. If you're still watching, you're probably one of my closer friends and family or fans who's watching. Thank you. I want to provide a quick update. I know I haven't been uploading over the summer, and mainly I've just been relaxing, finding some work-life balance, but things are moving. I have expanded my team. I'm going to be making more content, so stay tuned. I'm really excited to get back in front of the camera and provide some good value to all of you. But I guess that's my way of saying thank you. Otherwise, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye-bye.